Yeah, well, hello, welcome again to Talking Pictures. How's it going? Brian here, and I'm joined today by my good friend and the real host of this show, David. David, how are you?
I'm not the real host. What are you talking about? We share the hosting duties. That's ridiculous to say I'm the host. It's a co-host.
Come on now.
I'm good though. How are you?
Swell, David, swell. This movie wasn't swell.
Don't let them know straight away that we didn't like it. We got to do the trailer section first. But
David, before we get on to discussing this week's movie, trailer of the week. Yeah. Trailer of the week, David. I've got a trailer for the week, right?
Okay, hit me with it.
Do you want to know what the trailer of the week? I wonder if you saw this, right? This is a movie where you will watch it and struggle to argue how Zac Efron is not a suitable candidate to be the new Wolverine.
I know exactly what you're gonna talk about here now, and it's a great trailer, and I'm really looking forward to this.
The Iron Claw, starring Zac Efron he's not, the pretty boy lean body. He hulked the fuck out for this. Mm-hmm. The Iron Claw, it's a true story about Zac Efron and three of his brothers who were brought up by a hard-bitten father in a wrestling business. He's a very bad, strict father, and it's just going to go through the whole drama of how he's an unfit father because of his dominance and his ruthlessness in rearing his sons to be overly competitive to the point where the drama is so high it warrants a movie. Mm-hmm. Hence, true story. So yeah, starring Zac Efron, Harris Dickinson, your man who's in The Bear,
Jeremy Allen White.
Your man who's in Jeremy Allen White. I knew it was a three-name person, and Holt McSomething, who's from Mindhunter, who plays the father. Just and Zac Efron, he's not just hulked up, but he what was the name of the original Hulk actor?
Lou Ferrigno.
Lou Ferrigno. So he even has similar hair like him as well. Like Zac, it's not pretty boy Zac Efron hair. He's got he's physically gone method. Whether he'll go method emotionally to garner him an Oscar nomination, we'll see. But yeah, the Iron Claw comes out at the end of this year.
Yeah.
That's this week's trailer.
And it's an A24 movie, which, if you don't know A24, they put out just quality movies. They had Everything Everywhere All at Once and The Whale last year, which just cleaned up at the Oscars. And go back through any of their catalogue. When I see the A24 logo, I just know, I'm getting a good movie here. I'm getting a quality movie here. I trust it. So the fact that came up, and then this was already a movie I was looking forward to, it just punctuated I'm really looking forward to this movie. A movie that I'm not looking forward to is discussing The Exorcist Believer, which is our main topic of conversation today. I know we like to keep a bit of a positive spin on this podcast, but fuck me, this movie was bad.
Well, I wouldn't say it's bad. It was just severely disappointing. But I knew it was going to be like that. I knew this movie was going to be disappointing. Why? The last two or three, depending on how you thought, Halloween movies. It's from the same director and the writing team. So The Exorcist Believer, it's doing the same thing with, let's ignore all the other movies and let this be a direct sequel to the original. And let's milk this franchise and bleed it dry of the milk and blood from a cow to milk as much revenue as possible from the IP until we've bled it dry and tossed it to the side and throw it to the next studio that thinks they can have their turn at it. So they literally are bleeding this Exorcist franchise, this intellectual property, IP of anything they have. They'll probably even rehash old story beats from previous movies and just put it into this new trilogy. David, trilogy. They're making a fucking trilogy out of this. They already have so this is Exorcist Believer, shite. They have Exorcist Deceiver for 2025, and then they'll have their third one, which will also decrease even more in quality, Exorcist Underachiever.
You're on the right team. We got an inside scoop here from you, Brian.
And I listened to an interview of David Gordon Green, the director, and I heard him, talking about him directing the Halloween franchise, and openly just justifying how he wanted to tell the stories he wanted to tell that he thought were good and good ideas, and I'm sure, like, how can a director admit their work is shit, especially when it's so fresh in their memory? Like, down the line, years ago, someone like in the caliber of Martin Scorsese or Steven Spielberg, they can say, yeah, I'm not too happy with how I handled that movie, or I did some things in this movie, because they have the years behind them. But no director in the fresh memory span, and easily and quickly made movies like Halloween and Exorcist, they're not going to say, I'm not too happy with how I did this movie. Doesn't matter how audiences or critics dislike it. But David, audiences and critics do not like this movie. This feels like this is even just almost worse than the third Halloween movie, and this just starts out low from the gate. This is just low from the get-go. And and hearing him justify how this movie, like, is a good start, and it's a start to a trilogy, David, like a trilogy. What?
Yeah.
And he also said that he's not in the plan yet to direct the next two. We'll see. I'm hashing out my options. Like, dude, don't bother.
Yeah.
Right. You already made bad decisions in this one. And another thing as well is, like, they like to talk about the hype of having Ellen Burstyn, the legacy actor from, she's from the original, come back to play the role, because that's all who they have, essentially. She is, and I know this is what happened. They got the right. They paid $400 million for this intellectual property to make these movies. And so Jason Blum, who I do like as a producer, he's like puts his hand in his pocket for pocket change, and reaches under the sofa for whatever strap he has under there, and say, "Here, make a movie." And he makes money out of that. Just look at The Invisible Man and how successful that was.
Yeah.
But Jason Blum, he obviously reached out to Ellen Burstyn, that 19 years old she is, 90, and convinced her to come back to reprise the role of, what was her name? Chris McNeil. And
I was going to say, I don't remember because I don't care.
And he convinced her to come back. I bet the script wasn't even fully written yet. Jason Blum would go up to his team, and the director says, I got you this actor. Put her in the movie.
Yeah.
Do what you can. And this is the movie what you got, because she was definitely one of the lackluster, wasted, unnecessary characters in the movie. And David, just why are you're just bleeding it dry, and you're just going to toss it to the curb. You're just making it worse. You really did make it worse this time. David, we didn't like this movie. I didn't like this movie anyway. Do you want to tell us why you didn't like it? Maybe you can go into the movie and what it's about.
Yeah.
And justify what I am saying.
So, yeah, like, going off of a lot of what you said there, like, David Gordon Green obviously getting the keys now to this franchise. He got the keys to the Halloween franchise, with the Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. And
shite.
Yeah, like, with those movies, I really enjoyed the first one, 2018. I think that was a great, like, oh wow, okay, a good Halloween movie. This is, rare to get one of them. And then they clearly had an idea for the next one, but then kind of in the middle of it all, they were like, oh, hold on, we could actually make a movie between what ended up being the first one and the third one. They kind of made like a movie in between. And that's what it seems anyway. But like, if you had just condensed, I think maybe 2 and 3 down into a one movie, of having that kind of like, just merge it and have the essentially kind of the non-seriousness of the second one, where it's like it's just a massacre, everyone's killing him, or he's killing everybody, and then everyone comes together at the end and he dies like he does in the third one. That would have been actually a satisfying one. It's like a bit of a, it's gruesome, but it's cool and it's a bit of fun. You're not taking it as seriously as maybe the first one. But the way they went about it was like, oh, okay, let's just yeah, like you said there, it's a bit of a cash grab of like, oh, why make 2 movies when we can make 3 movies without actually having a full plan of doing it. And I don't like that. I don't like the, oh, we've confirmed a trilogy, and we
Star
don't
Wars.
yeah, Star Wars, or now I guess Exorcist, that it's just making movies for the sake of making movies. It's not like David Gordon Green was like, I have such a passion for the original Exorcist. Like, The Exorcist is like what got me into filmmaking. Like, I'd rather give that to someone and they just make a good movie rather than, okay, the first in a series of 3 movies that, like, now I don't want to see anything else from this at all. It felt like there was no, I suppose, reverence for anything that came before. There was no like it just didn't feel like they kind of held the first one to the high esteem that it should have been held to. And so then anything that was then kind of presented in this new one just felt like, oh, get the iconography from the first one, get what will people recognize, and it's, the demon little girl and a priest coming in, and then Ellen Burstyn. Like, to be honest with you, who the fuck wants to see Ellen Burstyn? Like, if you're going to do a legacy character, someone who has experience with demonic possession, just get Reagan in. Like, I would much rather see the girl that was possessed in the last movie, come in and say, I have experience with possession, and she can go and speak to the parents like, this is what's going on. And I'd much rather see it from her perspective of a character who's been through this going on, as opposed to the mother who, experienced her daughter maybe going through possession, but like it's third hand experience. And then her whole backstory is I spent my after the possession, I spent the rest of my life looking this up and researching it. I've never actually been in the room when an exorcism happened. I'm like, so why are we bringing you back? Why do we care? What, like, it genuinely did feel like, oh, we got Ellen Burstyn. We got her. Put her in the movie. Exactly like you said. We got her. And I know for a fact, because I looked this up when I was doing the flashbacks for this episode, they offered her money. She said no, and then they doubled the salary. And that's why she said yes. So it's not like she wanted to come back and play this. She took the salary and she donated it. She donated it to an acting school that she went to. So it's not like even she wants to be there. And even with her, these legacy characters, you do kind of treat them with a lot of respect in a way. Like, royalty. Say how The Force Awakens treated the original 3. With Han Solo kind of being the most present. Now, fair enough, they killed off Han Solo, but I felt like they had a lot of respect in like his kind of grandioseness. Whereas Ellen Burstyn comes in, they're having like a coffee. She's like, yeah, they probably didn't let me into the room because of the patriarchy. And I'm like, what? They didn't let you in the room because they were performing an exorcism. They didn't want you to see your daughter say, shove, let me shove this crucifix up my, stuff like that, and puking everywhere and saying, taunting the priest, saying to fuck her and stuff like that. That's probably why. And it's a much more serious, like an exorcism. Like, we're driving the demon from your daughter. That's why they didn't want you in the room, not because of the patriarchy. I'm all for, the likes of Barbie, who can like critique it and show you what's bad, but just throwing that line in there, like just for the sake of it, oh, they probably didn't let me in there because of the patriarchy. It's like, who's that for? Who is like, yeah, Ellen Burstyn, you got it, go for it. And then even the actual exorcism scene, like, I'm jumping ahead. Sorry.
I'd like to save the exorcism, like the exorcism for the movie, The Exorcist Believer, at the end of this. But now, David, in defense of this movie, and I don't want to give it any, but I will defend it. What is the chap's name who played Reagan? Linda Blair. Linda Blair. I believe she was offered to come back, but she had no interest whatsoever. Now, she's not really acting these days. She was one of those child actors of the time who decided really not to pursue much of an acting career of it. But she was kept on this movie as a consultant for the child actors who are playing the possessed individuals. So she was, because, as a young child actor, I'm sure to do all this, it could be, heavily challenging and emotional for for the role and the duties. So I'm sure they kept her on as that. And also to sell that as a story to the
Yeah.
to the news articles. It's like, we kept her on as a consultant. She like is Linda Blair returning to The Exorcist Believer? Yes, but not what you might think. You know.
But is that not a sign if you ask Linda Blair and she says no, and then you ask Ellen Burstyn, do you want to come back, and she says no? Is that not a sign? Okay, then let's leave them out of it. I felt like they actually added nothing to the plot. It was literally just them being there to have them there. It just didn't. It didn't serve the story at all. All Ellen Burstyn did was kind of tell him about exorcism, her experience, like a small amount of experience with it. Say she has the strange relationship with Reagan now, and then get stabbed in the eyes. And it's like, okay, why are we now handicapping her? Is it so that she doesn't have to watch the movie? I wish I had my eyes stabbed out.
I'm pretty sure there were definitely reshoots where they obviously did something worse, or they did something not as effective, and they decided to go back and obviously reshoot that, because I know Ellen Burstyn, I looked up that she came back for reshoots, and I want to talk to the guy or girl who shouted into the writer's room, "Hey, let's have her eyes get stabbed out." Yeah, and I'm sorry, but when that happened, I just thought, you just spat at the Queen.
Yeah, it's like,
that's what you did. That right there is royalty. You're not allowed to touch them like that.
If you had her possessed and killed, and it's like, okay, this is the kind of demon that we're dealing with, but just having her like completely handicapped and now she's blind, it's like, okay, well, now she's a completely uninteresting character. She's a 90-year-old woman that's blind and can't. It doesn't serve the story at all. I felt like she was her whole aspect of the film. There was no reason to have her, in any sense.
And then hey, we'll just throw Reagan in there to just close that little mini story chapter that she comes back into her life. She lost her eyes, but she still gets Reagan back.
Yeah.
You know, what's the message of that?
I don't know. I genuinely don't. But the actual girls that were possessed. I suppose we talk about that, like the actual plot of the film. We find out the two girls that are possessed. I felt like having two people that were possessed actually did the movie worse, because throughout the film we're kind of cutting back between the two of them, and you're seeing a different, like, slow level of progression of the possession. But because good.
You're seeing Victor and his daughter, and you're seeing the other family that who gives a shits or who gives a fucks. That family, yeah, Mr. and Mrs. who gives a fuck, and their daughter. Actually, I actually like, between the two demon girls, I actually like the demon girl of the family.
So did I.
More.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I think the things that child as a possessed, a demon possessing a child, I thought the things that did her were more interesting, especially with the makeup and whatnot.
But having the two of them slowly progress meant that by the time that they were both actually possessed, it felt like, oh, I don't believe that either of these two would be at this level. Do you know what I mean? Like with the first movie, with The Exorcist, it was that slow kind of progression of like Regan getting worse and worse and worse, and then she's fully taken over. Whereas by seeing the two girls slowly possessed, then once they are fully possessed, it's too much of a jump. Like you're seeing kind of different levels of each girl. So I think splitting it over the two different girls actually made it worse. Like I would rather
the shared screen time really committing to the two girls of progressing, it really just jumped. Like the jump from Victor's daughter, from hitting him over the head and then being brought straight into the hospital, strapped in, and then the other family, the next time we see her with her family after being found alive, it's already at the church.
Yes.
And we all seen the church scene in the trailer. So like that's already done.
There's no like slow inkling of something being wrong, because I remember in the original, like Regan, like her mom's having the party, and she comes downstairs and she just like wets herself, and it's just like slow little like things that you can kind of pass off as like, oh, being a kid, you know, like, oh, she had a nightmare and she wet herself. Whereas with this one, like that, Victor's daughter just like hits her over the head, like she goes to have the bath and attacks him, and then the other girl that she's in the church, and she's like straight away be like possessed, shouting.
She downs some wine and just starts shouting the moment that executive want to put in a trailer, no matter how poorly done the scene could be.
Yeah. So then because I felt like it was that where you saw her there and she has that, and then almost nothing, and then the next time you see that girl is when she's fully possessed with the original kind of demon like Regan possession. And I was like,
hence
why are we this? How is she this far and we have seen nothing? It just felt like it was like, bam, okay, they're fully possessed. And I don't see any reason as to why, like, serving the story, I don't see a reason as to why the having two girls possessed was there, other than for them to make that choice of, okay, one of them has to survive, which is the same choice that obviously Victor had to go through earlier on in the film. But I don't feel like it was necessary to have two girls be possessed. You could have done that with just one girl and one family.
Yeah.
Keep it with Victor and his daughter, but having the choice of like, okay, you need to pick like you did with me earlier. And it just, maybe they're setting it up for a sequel. Maybe she's going to come back or something like that. I felt like she's in this kind of like upside down Stranger Things, like other world, and maybe she'll come back again. But I just didn't see the point of it other than to serve that one choice.
I know what you mean, David. And I'd like to offer my comments on that specific story choice right after some flashbacks.
Whoa!
Laura, cue the music. Cheers, Laura. David, do you have some flashbacks?
I do. I begrudgingly had to look up some flashbacks for this. So I've got two flashbacks. So the first one was actually one that you stated earlier on, is that Linda Blair, who was the original Reagan in the original 1973 film, actually stayed on as an advisor on the set to the actresses portraying the possessed girls in this film. I think that was a good choice. If if she said like, oh, I don't want to be in the film, that you wouldn't just like, okay, bye. But do you mind like that they offered her a role, whether it be because it was behind the camera. That's not just all right, you don't want to be in it, see you later, bye, moving on.
Instead of hiring an actual professional who works with children for this type of job, they got the actor who did the same thing, and instead of hiring a professional who can it's a profession. They study for this thing. It's like someone who has been abused. Instead of going to a therapist, they're going to someone else who has been abused. But that person who has been abused does not have the profession to help that person get better. So
does she not do anything?
It's a nice thing. She doesn't act really, and I don't know what she does for a business. I hardly doubt it's literally what she was hired for this movie for. All I know is that someone is getting a turn on from that news article saying Linda Blair stayed on as a consultant for the child actors in this movie, even though she refused to have a role in this movie. Except, aside from the cameo, of course, because she does appear at the end.
Yeah.
Which is nice to see her on screen.
That's the thing. Like, as soon as I saw her, I was like, okay, so she's not opposed to not coming back at all. Like, honestly, if you had that Ellen Burstyn scene with her, with Linda Blair instead, just when she goes to meet her, have that, and like maybe she refuses to come back, then that would have, okay, you brought back Linda Blair and you got more information of the possession that way, and it's tied up, just not have her come back. That she came back in a very, very limited role, and they would have got the same level of like, okay, wanting that legacy character and putting her in the advertising and stuff like that. Like, that's really, I think, a lot of what they wanted the legacy character for, is just to advertise it as, whoa, look who's back, whether it be anyone. They obviously couldn't get the two priests because they're dead. So, okay, who do we have left? Ellen Burstyn and Linda Blair. Linda Blair doesn't want to be in it. Right, get Ellen Burstyn. So, my other flashback is, I lie, I said I had two, I've got three. So, something you had mentioned there. Blumhouse spent $400 million to secure the filming rights, and on top of that, they had to guarantee a trilogy. Even if Believer bombs at the box office, which it is, the next two films still have to be made. So that was a concession they made when they bought it, is that they guaranteed a trilogy. So even if this movie made absolutely nothing, if this was a negative, if it lost $1 billion somehow, it would still, we would get a second and a third one, which is, like you said there, what is it? Believer, Deceiver, and Underachiever.
You gonna go watch the next ones?
I don't want to. There's nothing that in this movie that made me want to see a sequel. I suppose I will if we're going to cover it on the podcast, 2 years from now. But they'd really want to buck up. They'd really want to make a good movie, because they just need to make a good movie. And who cares if it's an Exorcist movie? Make a good movie and then make it an Exorcist movie after that. Worry about that aspect after. And then the third flash fact is, it's not even really a fact too much. It's just that this movie came out 50 years after the original. The first one 1973 and this one 2023. So 50 years between the original and this one.
That's a good fact. That's a good fact,
yeah.
David.
It'd be good if there was no other movies. Like, there's, how many Exorcist movies? There's Exorcist, Exorcist 2, Exorcist 3, which I haven't seen. The only ones I've seen are The Exorcist and this one. I've heard The Exorcist 3 is apparently actually supposed to be really good. It actually has Samuel L. Jackson in it. And then I think there's a prequel called Dominion, which is about the priests. But I don't know if there's another one on top of that. So there's like 5 movies. So we've The Exorcist, Exorcist 2, The Heretic, Exorcist 3, then Exorcist The Beginning, and then Dominion. And its official title is Dominion, prequel to The Exorcist. So, this is the 5th movie in this series, and nothing about this movie made me want to, see a 6th or a 7th, which is what was...
Nope, just want to... I would only literally just watch the first one, just because of what it is. I wouldn't even hold it in high regard like I would with other horror classics, like The Shining or The Thing. It would, but the first Exorcist, I would go watch it.
Yeah,
don't watch this movie.
And that takes us to the end of the flashback segment. If Laura, could you play us out of this so that we can get to the end of the episode, please?
Play, Laura, play away. Cheers, Laura. So, David, before the flashbacks, you said about the choice between having to choose which girl who is possessed to live and which one to die. So, I get these fucking filmmakers thought they were cool and edgy and hard ass. Look at us, we went there. We went all out. Actually, had one of the girls die in a very disturbing way, that her soul was taken, but her body dies. So you're just leaving the audience to go with that, because we literally have a scene where her, in her head or whatever, gets taken, drowned or whatever, but that's not her body, that's her soul, if I'm correct, or her conscience, and that's happened to her. But she's dead. Her body's dead. So what fucking gives? I think I've cursed a lot in this episode.
Yeah, I have too.
Previous episodes.
It's not something that we usually do, but we'll let
the fact that we were doing it really goes to show how much we're not happy with this. And I really was not happy with that decision. I really wasn't.
And I think the reason why we're both so disappointed with it is because we were both looking forward to it. When the first trailer came out, I was like, oh, okay, that looks good. I am looking forward to that. But being so disappointed makes me more angry, because I had high hopes for it. Not even high hopes for it. I had hopes for it, but it didn't even meet the base level of what it needed to be. I think that the worst thing that we can say about this movie, and I don't know about you, but I would say it, is that it's not scary. It's boring.
Yeah. Do you know what was the scariest thing in this movie? A snake. A real... and do you know why that is scary, David? Because if I was there lifting up that rock and a snake literally jumped out, that's how I would react.
Yeah.
I would be scared.
Yeah.
Frightened. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Genuinely, there's nothing that I even jumped at. Like, it was boring.
I did like Anne Dowd. She plays the nurse who was going to be a nun, who I guess took charge of The Exorcist. you know, as leading the fucking Exorcist Avengers team for the end game. Like,
Can we talk about that yet?
David. There are fucking 9 or 10 or 11 people in the fucking room at the end.
It was.
So, Dave, let me roll
yeah.
into this, right? So we had Victor, the father, his daughter, of course, and then we have the Mr. and Mrs. who gives a fuck, you know, and their daughter, right? And then we have the confidant to Victor, his neighbour, the nurse, who I like her because she's in The Handmaid's Tale. And then we have a confidant, a preacher, you know, wearing a suit, and made as a joke, really, throughout the movie because of how he goes about. But he actually, you know, it's a part of a montage of a slow motion sequence where all these people are coming to this guy for help. Oh, so we're supposed to take him seriously now, which I actually thought was a little bit funny and interesting. Who else is there? Oh, this guy who's also a neighbor with glasses, who brought these cult religious fanatics into Victor's house to bless the room, and he's there because he's there. And one of the religious fanatics, you know, are we sparking a love interest between her and Victor? And who else? Oh, this fucking priest who knows this person through this person, who didn't want to do the Exorcist because it was not sanctioned, and so he's sitting in his car praying, doing nothing. And when he goes in, he gets his head twisted. It's like, oh, remember that from the first movie? We did it here, except we did it to him, and he dies, and it was CGI, so it looked bad.
Yeah. No, it's like, why?
So
yeah, sorry.
We had a fucking Avengers assembly with the fucking Exorcist, and I don't care if you try to be smart and clever by having like 2 or 3 different religious prayers going on at the same time, and everyone else having a go at trying to drive the demon out. The exorcism was not paced well at all.
No.
It was just poorly done altogether, and what were we watching? And with that many people in the room, I wanted like half of them to die. Because literally 100% of the people performing the exorcism in the first Exorcist, 100% of them died. There was 2 people and they both died. One person just died, so like 10% out of 100%. This movie had no stakes, and it was like, what? And how do you explain this to the cops as well? It's like, oh yeah, this girl died because the demon took her, and like, where's the demon? Did it just leave? Why did it do this? Why did it possess these girls? If just to kill one? Couldn't you do that already? Why now? I did like the special effects and the makeups on the girls, but there's a couple of CGI shit in the movie, and it's like, what was that fucking mist cloud coming from the chimney? And it's like, I don't even want to talk about that. Do you know what I thought was a clever little scary thing that just never went back to? Was Victor's talking to his daughter, who is bedridden. She's not fully possessed yet, but we're looking at her, look at him, and we see him, and there is a possessed version of her sitting behind him, out of focus, and making like, you know, a scary noise, but it's muffled, and it's just enough to like scare the audience, and it's so seamless. You know, it's like that scene in Insidious where the ghost is sitting behind Patrick Wilson, but it's more seamless. Well, anyway, yeah.
See, that, like, the difference between the scene in, just specifically that scene there, right, before I actually talk about the exorcism, the difference in that is what's the scare there for? And in Insidious, a character actually does see that and is scared by that demon behind Patrick Wilson. Whereas that scene there that you're talking about in The Exorcist is just there for us. There's no one that experiences that scare and knows that. So it's different of like, okay, you're putting these scares in just for the audience, or is the person within the scene scared or frightened for their life? So when it's just done for us, it doesn't make sense within the world. Does that make sense?
Even though the character who's being possessed, and it's a version of her looking at herself, I guess, is there looking at him, because she's looking at him and we're looking at him, and we're both seeing that thing behind him, but that's the girl looking at herself.
Yeah, but she's not like reacting to that, is she?
Well, that's funny. I should remember that when I give my recommendation for the end of this episode, because it's one reason I like it. I'll get into it later, but that's how to do it wrong.
But then, yeah, like you're saying, like the actual exorcism, which was like the Avengers of just having as many, like, oh, what characters have we introduced in this film that we can have there? It just was like, there was no continuity to it, whereas with the original Exorcist, it's like, okay, we're going in now, and like the priests go in, they're by themselves, and they perform the whole exorcism, and it's like, you're there, it feels like you're the third person in the room. Whereas with this, it's like the camera is spinning around, there's so many people there, they're all from different religions, you don't know what's working, you don't know what's what. It's like, what level of the exorcism are we at in terms of like how much pain is the demon in? At least with the original one, you could gauge that, like, of what was working and what wasn't. Whereas with this one, they were just kind of like writhing around in pain, and then they were fine, and then they're writhing around in pain, and then they're fine, and then they're like, okay, make the choice, and then they make the choice, and then the girl dies and the other one's fine. I was like, okay, so it didn't feel like the actual exorcism, which is what we're all there for. They just didn't put any effort into it. And having just that rotating cast of characters where it's like, okay, where are you from and what religion are you, and like, what are you doing, what are you saying? I can see where they're coming from in terms of like wanting to have it like a bit like multicultural and all these different religions and stuff like that, but it's like, I don't need that at all. This is very much a like Christianity based, like, you know, the demon versus God kind of, that kind of power, the power of God, the power of Christ compels you. It's literally in one of the most famous lines from it, but it just didn't feel like that at all. And then when the most obvious twist ever, where it's like, okay, pick one of us, you can only save one of us. Oh no, the girl that we picked is the one that died. Who saw that coming? Oh wait, everyone, because it's obvious. And also, guess what happened at the start of the movie? When he chooses, okay, save my wife, and oh, guess who dies? The wife. So why wouldn't the demon play the exact same joke, the same, you know, cruel joke on Victor and the other ones? It was just so obvious to me. Now, the only thing that I did like, and I would have liked to see a little bit more of it, is the fact that Victor did choose the wife, and then his daughter is the one that lived. It's only kind of revealed to us that happened. The demon says it, so the demon knew about it, but I wanted to see the daughter find that out, and maybe that causes a strained relationship or something like that, because essentially at the beginning of the movie, they're a perfect little happy family, the two of them. You know, there's no problems at all with them. Whereas if we saw a little bit of a strain there because she found that out or something. Now, fair enough, you know, he didn't want her to have the scarf at the beginning. He didn't need the mom's scarf.
That's why this whole thing started, David.
I know,
because she wasn't allowed the scarf.
And if she had had that, she would have had the link. But it's not. I just didn't find the twists. I didn't find them to be twists. I was expecting everything that happened. I wasn't scared. I found it boring, and I just would not recommend this to anyone for anything. The only reason I would find to watch this is, oh, I'm going to watch all of the Exorcist movies, and I'm not. My expectations for any future movies are on the floor, if not below. They're in the pits of hell with that little girl, wherever she is. And if we see her in the next movie, couldn't care less.
You just wanted to leave that taste in our mouths when we leave the cinema. Like, you want us to think that. What the fuck are you thinking? A good horror, thriller, scary movie these days end with a happy ending.
Yeah, and it's the same with the original. Like, you kind of want, if it's a story about people versus a demon, you don't want the demon to win overall, you know?
Yeah.
And that was the thing with the original one. Yeah, like, the two priests died, but they killed the demon. Whereas in this one, it was the demons gave them a choice, and then one of them fucked off and the other one killed the girl. So it's like, okay, the demons won.
Damn it.
The demons just won. It just didn't.
Do you know what else? No. Do you know what else that you know, they tried to work on us, but I could just see through it. You know, it felt like a person with diabetes who's gonna eat a chocolate ice cream. They play that Exorcist music theme, revamped to like a modern, updated version to give you all the goosebumps and the excitement and the thrills to hear it. You know, like what the Halloween movies did with its Halloween theme. You know, the music. They did a couple of variations and different tones, and a little bit electronic in a way, and it got me goosebumps. You know, I won't lie. Especially for the first Halloween in 2018, a couple of scenes there, like the music. Try to do it here for the build up, the proper, build up to Ellen Burstyn's scene, and I'm like, I'm about to bite the hand that is feeding me, and I've got a dynamite explosion ready to hand it over because I'm not falling for this trick to like this movie just because of this good score that they've made for a poor movie.
Yeah, that's it exactly. That it's a trick and you're not falling for it.
And yeah, do you know what I will do? I'll go watch the original and listen to the score there.
Absolutely.
That's what we'll do. David, I think we're done talking shit about this movie.
Yeah.
We won't need to talk about it again. I'm happy to listen back to this one when we release it. And I hope the folks get to find some enjoyment out of this. But before we wrap today's episode, David, have you got any recommendations or have you got any final touches on this discussion before the recommendation?
No, I think I've wrapped it up there. Sorry to everyone for being so negative, but I think there's only so many movies that we can watch where, you know, we talk about it positively and put a positive spin on it, but sometimes you just do get a stinker. And I think it's fair. I don't think that anything we've said was particularly nasty. We have problems with what
because we were excited. We were excited about this movie.
Yeah, we're disappointed by it, and like I think everything that we said in terms of like what were the problems, like there are problems that the movie presented, and we have critiques on. Like it was done badly, it was done poorly. I think that there is a version of this movie that is good, but it lies somewhere within the writer's room, and it started from there. When you start off a movie with, okay, we have to make a trilogy, we have to make this. That's not what filmmaking is. It's like, okay, we want to make this, we have a passion for this, and we want to do it. It's just, it doesn't sit right with me. But, sorry, that's a tangent there. My recommendation for this week, a movie I watched last night, it's called Talk to Me. And it is, it's an A24 film, I think, and it's about a girl who kind of goes to these parties, and there's a mannequin hand, and when you hold a mannequin's hand, you can talk to a dead person. You don't know who it's going to be. There's just a dead person, and you can invite the dead person inside you, and it's kind of like, I suppose it's like taking a drug. You get this really euphoric feeling, and obviously that is going to lead to some negative things happening if you let a dead person inside you. So it's a quick 90-minute film. I watched it for the first time there last night, and I quite enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting some of the things, and in contrast to The Exorcist, there were times where I was like scared or like a little bit squeamish, and I'm like, oh, whoa, what's going on? You know, I reacted to it as opposed to The Exorcist, where I was like sighing, waiting for it to be over. But have you got any recommendations?
Well, I concur with you, Dave. I did see Talk to Me, and I liked it.
Yeah.
So my recommendation for this week is a Netflix limited series from Mike Flanagan. At least the premiere episode. Give it a watch. See what you think if you haven't watched this stuff before. The Fall of the House of Usher. Couple of offs and a couple of the in the title, but when it's Mike Flanagan, God fucking damn it, David. God fucking damn it, I'm gonna watch it. Mike Flanagan is in the top 5 directors for me of all time because he's just so good at what he does, and I like what he does. And one thing I like what he does is the dialogue. Next thing he does, just characters. He does such great characters, and he does great dialogue. So Fall of the House of Usher, it's about the patriarch, monarch, the grandfather of a billionaire conglomerate pharmaceutical empire. He's being haunted by, let's say, a couple of souls that are in his family because they keep dying. And the movie is told in multiple timelines, but it pretty much starts in the present with the grandfather, the leader, played by Bruce Greenwood, and this district attorney, lawyer, so to speak, investigator, and it's these two men in an old house, haunted house, if you will, having a discussion, and the grandfather is recounting the previous couple of weeks leading up to where he is at in his life, where his children are dead, and each episode from there onward is probably going to follow one of his children and what they're doing as a great character as they are, and their debt, up to where we are in The Two Men in the Room. And there's a scene in this first episode where the two men are sitting together, right, on the chairs. The grandfather and the investigator, right? The grandfather tells the investigator to turn around. And he the investigator says, no, because that's just me playing to your little toys and your games to, make you think you have power over me, but you don't. So he doesn't turn around. And I'm watching the scene, and I think we cut to the investigator's point of view shot 3 times before I realised there's a fucking ghost standing behind him in the darkness. And you definitely see it when it walks away. David, Mike Flanagan is a genius when it comes to horror. Because he tells good stories. He doesn't focus on the horror shit like what this guy did with The Exorcist. David, if you haven't seen anything from Mike Flanagan, watch something. Anything. He's good. He's worth it. He's definitely worth it. And this is his last project with Netflix before he starts doing anything with Amazon Prime Video. So I've been waiting for this, and it's good. It's great. It has Mark Hamill in it as well, and it's great that he has Bruce Greenwood, because he's worked with him before. Great. The Fall of the House of Usher. It's 8 episodes, 1 season, and then it's concluded. Watch it.
I'd say a lot of people have seen some of his work before, because he obviously did Haunting of Hill House and Haunting of Bly Manor, and then Midnight Mass as well. If you've seen his movies, he did Doctor Sleep, which was the sequel to The Shining, and he did another one, Gerald's Game, which is a great one. It's a Stephen King book as well. I've only seen the movies. I haven't seen either of the series, but when this one did come up, it came up on my Netflix recommendation, and I was like, oh, this is a good one actually to watch. I'd say Laura would probably like this as well, so I was like, okay, I have that on my list now of things to watch, so I definitely will be taking that recommendation, because it was something I had already planned to watch, but the fact that you've come on now and said, yeah, this is a good one to watch, it'll definitely be moving up that list of movies to watch, so absolutely.
Well, David, I think we should wrap today's episode up.
Please.
Folks listening to us, thank you for listening to this episode of Talking Pictures. We are on Instagram at Talking Pictures Pod1, and our email is Talking Pictures. We're on Instagram. Follow us. We put posts on links to listen to us on Spotify. You know the drill if you listen to us. It's 2023. We know the digital age we live in. We should know. But none the wiser. Please. It costs you nothing. It gives us everything. 5 stars. Did I say 5 likes and then 5 stars? I'm fucking this up. As many likes as you can give us. 5 stars, we appreciate it. We are on every Wednesday with a given moment of a bonus episode here and there. Please look forward to next Wednesday, where we will be discussing... It's a surprise. I'm not going to reveal it. David, this is why you're the host and I'm the co-host.
Just for the intros and the outros.
David, if I've nailed that, give me the thumbs up so we can skedaddle, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, David.